Bruce Banner works as a research scientist in a facility in Berkeley, California. His research focuses on the use of nanomedicine and gamma radiation to treat cancer and other disorders. Unfortunately, all of their experiments result in the death of the test animals. He works with Betty Ross. They were recently romantically linked but ended things because Bruce was too emotionally detached. Despite the fact that neither of them is aware of it, their dads worked together on an army post in New Mexico in the late 1960s. David Banner was a dedicated research scientist determined to discover the secrets of tissue regeneration so that humanity may restore missing limbs. When Sergeant Ross discovered Brian was experimenting on himself, he stopped off his experiments. David was well aware of the dangers and was already concerned that he had passed on some genetic abnormality to Bruce. Bruce was a timid, disturbed youngster who felt most at ease in the company of his mother, Edith. Following his firing, David destroyed his equipment, resulting in an explosion on base. He then returned home, battled with Edith, and attempted to murder young Bruce. Instead, he murdered Edith by mistake. David was arrested and sent to a mental institution. Bruce was put in the care of foster parents. An experiment goes disastrously wrong. Bruce is subjected to high dosages of nanomedicine and gamma radiation. He does not, however, perish like the other test participants. In the hospital, he is visited by a mysterious man who had previously began working as a janitor at the lab. Although Bruce is unfamiliar with him, it is his father. His father indicates that Bruce has hidden stores of strength inside him, then vanishes. Bruce returns to work after being released from the hospital. Bruce's wrath becomes uncontrollable, and he changes into the Hulk, a superhumanly powerful, green-skinned monster. He blows up the facility and dumps the gamma radiation generator in the parking lot. When he notices his father watching his rage, the Hulk flees in confusion. Because Bruce was the last person in the lab, Ross suspects him of destroying it and places him under lockdown. Betty pays a visit to David. He informs her about Bruce's power before politely showing her the door. Betty, upset, drives to her mountain cottage. Using stolen lab equipment, David has developed a trio of superpowered gamma dogs. He supplies the dogs Betty sent via a scarf she left behind and sends them to murder her. He then phones Bruce to inform him that he has succeeded in coaxing the Hulk out of him. Talbot arrives just in time to face Bruce. Ross has told Talbot to leave Betty and Bruce alone, which has enraged Talbot. He tries to beat Bruce but only manages to enrage him enough to provoke another Hulk change. Hulk brutally beats Talbot before fleeing the army soldiers to find and protect Betty. He battles and kills the gamma dogs in the mountain cabin. Exhausted, he reverts to Bruce in front of Betty's eyes. The army arrives the next morning and sedates Bruce. Betty had contacted her father in the middle of the night, wondering what to do. Ross has figured out who Bruce is. He has Bruce and Betty return to the New Mexico base where David and he had previously operated. Betty and Bruce travel about the grounds, trying to figure out how Bruce got who he is. Before any significant progress can be achieved, Ross' superiors entrust Bruce to Talbot's care. Talbot has convinced them that he can discover what causes Bruce to transform into the Hulk and harness that strength for military purposes. Betty walks away from the base. Talbot mocks Bruce before knocking him unconscious. Bruce is placed in an isolation tank so that Talbot can test him. However, when Talbot explores, he releases the Hulk. The Hulk escapes the tank and begins wreaking havoc on the army outpost. Talbot is killed in the process. Ross makes the decision to liberate the Hulk from the base and then destroy him outdoors. The Hulk smashes 4 army heavy tanks before leaping into the desert to seek refuge. Ross and his soldiers track him down, and he leads the army on a pursuit throughout the southwest, briefly clashing with a small unit of Comanche choppers. The Hulk escapes after firing on a series of rock structures meant to bury him, and travels toward San Francisco. There, he causes mayhem in the city until Betty arrives and calms him down. He reverts back to Bruce. David transforms himself into a superhuman entity by using the recovered gamma radiation generator and nanomeds. He can now take on the physical characteristics of everything he comes into touch with. He calls Betty and promises to surrender to General Ross. Inquires if he will be permitted to visit Bruce. Ross concurs. In an abandoned warehouse, a father and son meet. David attempts to convince Bruce to embrace his power and join him, but Bruce refuses. David connects to a power line and transforms into living energy. Bruce turns into the Hulk, and the two men engage in combat. They ultimately arrive at a remote lake. David resolves to take on all of Bruce's strength. However, Bruce's strength is so overwhelming that David is unable to hold it and explodes. As this occurs, the army detonates a bomb on the spot, destroying it. Bruce's corpse is never discovered. Ross maintains communication with Betty and hopes that if Bruce ever contacts her, she would inform him. But he knows she's not going to. An American doctor administers immunization injections to the impoverished in a South American rain jungle. Mercenaries attack his camp in order to seize the supplies. Bruce cautions them not to make him upset as his eyes become green.